It is Wednesday, November 23rd. It is the day before Thanksgiving. Um, I made little individual pumpkin spice cream cheeses, and they're cooling on the stovetop right now. I can't wait to see how they turned out. Anyway, cream cheeses, not cream cheeses, cheesecakes, little individual pumpkin spice cheesecakes. Anyway, uh, so um, I was. We'll talk a little bit about what happened this week on The View because it was really refreshing to see Amy, Alyssa, Farrah, Fowler, Griffin sort of go through what the right did to Fauci and why it was wrong, and making him the scapegoat. And to put it in such like simple terms that all of these things and all of these frustrations that people felt about COVID, they put all of them on him, which I thought was a really astute observation. I'm liking this one. I'm certainly not going to make a whole new channel on YouTube about how bad she is at this because she's actually good at this job. I still have a hard time understanding anybody who continues to be a Republican, knowing that the Republican Party has fallen to Trump and these maggots. Um, I don't know. And Bill Barr continues to implore Republicans to pull away from Trump, that they need to find a better leader for the party, that he's destructive and divisive. And it, I just don't see a way out of this for them unless he's in jail, because he's going to hold on to that cult. He ignored his Twitter reinstatement in favor of keeping himself on Truth Social, which is supposed to be his moneymaker, but I don't think it's actually making any money. He's never actually built anything that made money, except the presidency, which he didn't build; he just stole. Um, anyway, um, so he's going to hold on to that crowd. I do feel like he will get goaded into posting on Twitter eventually, but we'll see. So there's that whatever it is, 31 million people or whatever his little base is of maggots that are just going to draw away from the Republican Party if the Republican Party tries to do something else. The other side of that is they'll never those maggots are never going to vote for a Democrat, but they run the risk of if they push him away of him going third party and taking that whole crowd with him. So it is a weird dynamic, and I really don't understand the math in Kevin McCarthy's head in trying to win the speakership because he's courting the far right, which means the Democrats are never going to vote for him. There's a bunch of the far right that have already said they don't want to vote for him anyway. He should be tacking more centrist to bring the Democrats on board, and talk about bipartisanship and having learned something from the midterms. And like I think if he were doing that, he would have a better shot. But he's holding on to um, these ridiculous wing nuts in the far right of the party. And it's been said several times that there's so-called extremism on each party. I don't consider AOC and the Squad and the progressive arm of the Democratic Party very extreme. They're actually common sense policies that would have been very moderate a decade ago. Um, but they talk about how Nancy Pelosi sort of took the Squad and sort of shepherded them into um, the Democratic fold and helping get them on board, throwing them some bones about some of the legislation, but mostly being like, you got to play ball with us, otherwise we're never going to get anything done, and sort of quieting uh, that extremism from from their side of the party. But Kevin McCarthy, instead of trying to bring them into the fold, is just full on going with them. And I just don't understand how that's a bad leadership model, and B, I think terrible strategy. Um, so that's all a mystery to me. Um, the uh, what hasn't been brought up is a couple of things that worked in Trump's against Trump this week. And the courts have said he is not allowed to keep his tax records from uh, the House committees, so he is required to turn them over. Now, I don't know what the timeline is on that. Obviously, the House is going to turn to Republican control, so I don't know if they just sort of sweep all that under the rug because they're just a giant criminal enterprise, the GOP. Um, but uh, you know, we'll see what happens. He's not going to do it willingly, but is there time to hold him in contempt of Congress? I don't know. It all seems to be the clock seems to be ticking against our favor. But the other thing is that the Manhattan DA has reopened cases against him, and I believe primarily in his payments to Stormy Daniels. I would really love it if even after all of this, whatever it is, if it was payments to a porn star that took him down. I don't really care what it is, what they get him on, as long as they get him on something and he goes to jail. Um, so that's what I'll look forward to being thankful for this weekend. And the other thing that happened yesterday on the show was great when they were talking about. Oh, the other thing we haven't talked about is the Supreme Court leak that it's become very apparent that it's coming from Justice Alito. Um, I don't know. There's some whistleblower who has said that both the Dobbs decision and the uh, one earlier from like a year and a half ago um, came out of uh, uh, literally out of Alito's mouth, that he's the one who leaked the information. So I just know that if it were, Ketanji Brown Jackson or um, Elena Kagan, like if it were a Democrat leaning justice, the news would be all over it. They'd be calling for their impeachment. Like, why are we just sitting on Alito and the fact that this information has now become public, that he's the one who's leaking opinions before they're released. So uh, that's really frustrating to watch. But the other thing that I want to get back to this week that I thought was just wonderful, because it came out of a discussion about leaking, which made me think of the Alito thing, but leaking stories. And Amy Alyssa Fowler Griffin said at some point about leaking stories to the press about backstage at the View, and Joy just couldn't control herself. It was fantastic. She goes, "Oh, that's not a problem here anymore. That hasn't been a problem since, well, I mean," and she turns to Whoopi to say something, but it's clear she was trying to say that all of the leaks about the backstage antics of the View were coming from Megan. Because that's what was, they really haven't had any toxic workplace harassment, any of that kind of cat fighting in the backstage. None of those stories have been coming out, so it does seem a little bit like maybe Megan was making them up. She is a bit of an attention whore. She went on a tirade on Twitter about the Fauci thing, and people have a right to know, to ask the questions of him of where COVID came from. He doesn't know. He doesn't have the answer to the question. You can ask him all you want, but he doesn't know where COVID came from. So, like, what's the point of arguing about it? And that the thing that was embarrassing about that press conference was the press corps being adamant and yelling at the press secretary. It was just like that was embarrassing. Fauci not being able to have an answer for that question is not embarrassing. The behavior of the press corps was. So anyway, as usual, conservatives misbehave and then cry victim. Also, I saw a thing this weekend about how to be a good guest at Thanksgiving. And one of the things on the list, and maybe this is what exactly they were talking about today, one of the things on the list about being a good guest was to bring your own Tupperware. And I 100% agree with Joy. You don't fucking bring your own Tupperware expecting you're going to get leftovers. That's ridiculous. If the host says, hey, bring your own Tupperware so I can give you leftovers after, that would be great. Right. And that would make it easier. That would be a smart thing for the host to do, to be like, hey, if there's leftovers, I want to be able to share it. And then just bring your own containers so that we don't have to worry about that. The other thing is, don't give away your Tupperware. Save all those stupid jars that or not the tubs that like the stupid deli meat comes in, all those cheap things, and then just give them away and don't expect them back. Never give away the good stuff. Anyway, that's the rant for this week. Everybody have a lovely Thanksgiving weekend. I hope everybody gets to relax and enjoy it. I know I'm going to enjoy 4 days off, or I can eat and drink my little heart out. Happy Thanksgiving.